Oof.
A little bit rough there, a little bit rough.
But not wrong.
No, definitely not wrong. Definitely not wrong.
G'day, welcome to the Valve Bounce, and on this week's episode we're going to be covering a whole bunch of supercar stuff. We're going to contain the episode purely to supercars because there's been a lot happening and we've got quite a bit to discuss. Welcome, Stephen.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks for having me. Well, welcome everyone to the Valve Bounce. It's we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yeah, we're chugging along nicely.
Very good, very good. Oh, let's kick off. Obviously, we're going to be discussing supercars today, but Ford win.
Ford win.
Just put in something good down.
I know, like party poppers.
Bang! Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, finally the Parity changes, the aero that kind of happened, looks like it made some sort of difference to the tyre wear, which is mainly where we saw the big deficiencies, but it was great for Reynolds. A little bit of time between this and his last win, of course, but congratulations.
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years of no pop plants.
Yeah, well, that was, I was going to say, he did not disappoint yet again with a fire extinguisher and also a pop plant like he did about 5 years ago. But also, we did on the Saturday also have Cam Waters have his win. Is it? No, well, technically his
second win for the season, but let's go first real win because I don't even count Anton's win at Townsville because he needed 3 sets of tyres to do it.
Well, true, yeah. Well, that's within the framework, so
yeah.
You know. But yeah, you know, it was really great that that he was able to actually get some results because he's really been there or thereabouts all year and has had some pretty bad luck. And then you talk about some of the tyre deficiencies, so that was great for Cam as well.
Great burnout.
Yeah, finally we get someone else doing a great burnout because we know SVG's still probably the king, but yeah, awesome burnout from him.
Cam creamed it. It was beautiful. Loved it. However, Davey, time to work on that. If you're going to win again, you need to work on that. And even you, by reports, said that you weren't happy with your burnout at the end. So I'm sure you'll work on that.
Barely a burnout.
Legally, by the way.
Of course. I don't know what the rules are these days with supercars, but yeah.
No, that's exactly it. So, all right, so Gold Coast sort of showed me a little bit of what we've been missing this year. What about you?
Yeah, I think from when you start looking at the overall event, there's really only been, I believe, like Adelaide when it was the Clipsal, probably, you know, really after the Clipsal it sort of slowed down a lot. But that used to be a premier event which had so many track activities as well as, you know, really great on track. But Boost took it to another level.
They really did.
And I mean, what was your take on seeing, if anybody remembers, the VB challenge, the Boost challenge? I don't know what they officially called it, but
definitely Boost signage. Have we said Boost enough? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe.
We're safe.
We're safe. Good.
Thanks,
Pete.
Yeah.
No. Look, my take on it was bring it back.
Yeah.
We need more of that. That's off track or like on track, but.
Yeah,
party sort of in between stuff really needs to come back because we've really missed that. And yes, we used to call it the VB challenge back in the day where Steve Johnson would absolutely annihilate Mark Scaife and show that Mark is really not that good of a driver. Shots fired. Shots fired. Sorry, he is a good driver, but yes, definitely Stevie used to show him up in the old Falcon quite a bit. But yeah, we need that little bit of reprieve from just the racing on the track and a bit of fun in between. And I think Pete and the Boost Mobile guys really brought that this weekend or last weekend. I should say.
Last weekend it was great. And I guess, you know, if we then switch to some of the on-track stuff, you know, it was really strong, close, hard racing from everybody. From Cam holding off SVG, and then clearly, what was your take on the battle between Reynolds and Brody? I guess the last couple of laps really from when Brody took Reynolds, and then it all kind of unfolded from there, didn't it?
Yeah, it was an interesting comment by Brody as well as Dave. Like Dave said that when the other car was right up his backside Literally the aero came away from the back and it made it quite loose. And Brody actually mentioned the same thing when he didn't quite make the corner and lost the lead again. So it was a really good battle between the two. I think Brody showed that no matter what, he's going to give it everything he can to win the race, regardless of whether it's a championship on the line or not.
He doesn't care.
Because even, I don't know if you know, but he had contact with Tim Slade in the opening stint of the Saturday race, which actually had a bent rim when they came in. They were surprised that the tyre didn't go down from that. So, I think that just shows that Brody's just a racer and he's going to go for it no matter what. And the battle between him and Davey was as good as the chase from Shane to Waters in the end on the first race.
Yeah, I agree. And okay, let's call it Chicane Gate.
Chicane Gate.
No doubt that we're a little bit biased, but give me your takes on what are your thoughts?
I don't like straight lining chicanes, typically. They're corners for a reason. I will say that in this instant, you can definitely see that Reynolds is out of control going in, and he does attempt to make the corner at the very least. So for me, it was a bit of a play on. I didn't particularly love it, but it wasn't so crazy that it was just straight. So at least he made the attempt. He didn't quite get there. Maybe it took away from Brody having a real crack at him, but at the end of the day, the rules are the rules. They adjudicate. I'm not here to adjudicate. I can't make those changes. But yeah, it didn't sit perfectly with me. Let's say that I was probably 60%, it was okay.
Yeah, and I think having a listen to Craig Baird on the V8 Sleuth, he gave a great explanation where, it was within the rules. He'd banked it up and been great all weekend, actually. He'd been very minimal on his curb strikes.
Yep.
And he felt the same thing that when coming to the corner, definitely lost a little bit of control, braked a little too late trying to go in, and just straight lined it. And it is within the rules. I think overall for the sport that perhaps some fine tuning of that rule of how that works might be better for everyone, just to avoid people absolutely taking the mickey and going straight through for no default, no loss of track time, and just trying to clear the space between them and the competitor. Yeah,
definitely. And it's really hard at that circuit. Like, no matter what, whether you put tyre barriers there, whether it's this line that was hard for anyone to really spot other than through the TV, it is difficult. I mean, I thought the drivers overall did a really good job most of the weekend. There were a few in that first race, which, I thought would happen anyway, who copped 5-second penalties. Matt Payne was one of them. I think someone copped 10 seconds. I can't remember who that was, but they basically doubled up. Oh, it actually might have been Jack Smith by memory.
Yep.
It could be wrong. Tell me if I am. But yeah, overall, actually, I kind of preferred this weekend personally. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think, when all the manufacturers have an opportunity to win, and I think, just talking about the straight lining, even Barry was on board where he understood the framework of the rules and was like, that it's within his right to do so.
Yeah.
There was very little of that niggling stuff happening off track.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had that this year. Literally, it's been niggle all the way through to now.
Yeah.
So to have that section of it quieten down, I think actually made the event better to watch.
Yeah.
There was less, not that supercars typically talk about much anyway, but it felt like there was less niggle around the paddock even and in the press.
Yeah.
After the races. So
yeah, it was good to see. But that might potentially be because normally the people leading the niggle, I'll show my bias here, is Triple Eight. But what happened? We saw Shane obviously have some strong results, but what happened to Brock Feeney?
Brock had a doozy. To put it bluntly, he was nowhere. Had no pace, and apparently I was listening. He didn't have pace here last year.
Yeah,
I don't remember where he finished, but he was definitely down the order. So any hope that he had of even getting close to a championship gone.
Yeah.
Personally, what I liked about this weekend was it wasn't just Ford's had the changes. Suddenly we had like 6 to 10 Fords at the front with only one Camaro. What I felt, this was a great balance, right? Where we had both in the mix, in the hunt, and different. So on the first day, Shane was chasing Cam, and Shane seemed to be in the window. Second day, they made a blue in the qualifying, the opposite way around, and then we had different people vying for the front.
Up the front of the field.
So I really couldn't complain with the racing over the weekend. I thought it was really, really good. Back to Brock, I don't know what it is about the Gold Coast. So he just doesn't seem to gel with that circuit.
Yeah, there's lots of circuits that some drivers just never connect with, and they never show their full potential. I think that's where the greats are able to perform. Even on bad weekends, they still manage to keep themselves up there. And I guess we talked about comparing to last year, where we can't remember where he finished, but it was his rookie season. So we're still in those early stages.
We are. He's 21.
Yeah.
Like, he's really young. And as much as I don't like the beat up around him when he came into the series, because I feel like it was just a bit overdone.
The hype train was real.
The hype train was very real, but he is still a great driver, and he's going to have ups and downs, and he's proved pretty strong so far this year, and so he should, being in a Triple Eight machinery.
True.
So it'll be interesting to see what unfolds for him at Adelaide, but also next year. He was strong at Adelaide last year too.
Yeah, well, next year he was very strong last year at Adelaide. I do remember that. But also we have a new teammate for him next year.
Yes.
So how will that dynamic work? Will seems pretty easygoing, so I'm not sure there's going to be too much friction to start with. But once the results start kicking in, that perhaps if Brown is doing a better job, I wonder how that's going to go for Brock.
Yeah, look, Will's interesting. Since he's made this announcement to go to Triple Eight,
stonks have gone down.
Wheels have fallen off that car. I don't understand exactly what's going on, and I suppose conspiracy people will be like, "Oh, Erebus is stuffing him over." No, they're not. Obviously, he's had some back issues as well, so that would have definitely played definitely into last weekend, but even the previous rounds. If you ever had a sore back while trying to drive fast, that would be very difficult.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on Will, other than the back issue? Do you think he'll be all right once he goes to Triple Eight, or do you think he's going to struggle a bit?
No, I think he's going to be great. You always see drivers when they go to from an outfit like Erebus, where they really do kind of just pull it all together, and then you see an outfit like Triple Eight, which is arguably the most professional outfit in the lane. Just their structure around the team, around the drivers, the people they have in to support. I think it'll make it easier for him to perform at his best, and so we should see him at least, back where sort of Shane has been at a minimum. I know Shane's obviously had a bit of a tail off, even though he's second in the championship. But he's had a tough year with the new car. It's going to be one of those things. I think Will's going to be really good. He's suited to the Gen 3 car, and I think that he should. Well, there's no excuse for him not to be a front runner. All the time in that outfit.
I agree, and anyone who goes to Triple Eight, I suppose I have the expectation that they're going to be a front runner.
True.
So really, that equipment, although we're a little bit more even, they do a great job across the board, and as much as they irritate me, you can't really go in on them for that. So, but moving on to another struggling entity team, DJR.
Yes.
What's your take on their form slump?
Well, let's cast back. we had an outfit that was Team Penske, so it was DJR, Team Penske. I guess the investment, the money was definitely greater than there is now, no doubt about it. The talk coming off that change where Penske exited supercars was that it's still the same personnel. They really didn't change. They didn't get rid of too many people. So realistically, that structure of the team shouldn't have changed too much. But we've just seen, in my opinion, it's just been a gradual decline, and especially being the homologation team, it's really big concern for the Ford camp that they are at the forefront of the changes for Gen 3 cars, but they're probably Yeah, I was going to say probably, and I'm like, maybe only Cool Drive, but they're probably the worst. They are the worst
Ford outfit.
If you look at the team, it's probably hard because Nick Percat has been disappointingly low compared to Chaz, so maybe it's a bit unfair for me to say that, but yeah, that's sort of. I'm disappointed with where they are, and I'm not sure how they're going to move forward.
Yeah, look, and that's the biggest thing. How do they move forward? I don't see any roadmap plan that says they're going to move forward. They seem to be sitting in that mid to back half. I know they had a good Bathurst in terms of the 11 car and finishing third, but even apparently the changes that were initially brought in back in Townsville got the other Ford teams annoyed. And they felt it was the wrong direction to go. So I feel like DJR are a bit lost in both the homologation side of things and also in their own team outfit. So it's really hard to see them getting back.
Yeah, and
in the short term anyway.
And there's been, nothing official, but there's been talk about some of the friction between, in terms of the parity discussion, about supercars wanting direction or wanting things changed, and then the slowness of the response from DJR.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been very fruitful and they're pushing for it, and other times supercars are wanting some information back before they can make the decision. And some of the other Ford teams in the scuttlebutt around the paddock have been talking about how slow it's been and the response hasn't been there. I don't know how true, real, false that is, but there's always a bit of where there's smoke, there's fire. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think they have lost their way. It's going to be a massive challenge for them to stay even at their level and not progress to the next sort of step up. You see, like the Cool Drive outfit, they're going to be, Tim Blanchard will be adding a second car next year, and so you would only expect them to elevate themselves up, and that puts DJR at a real risk of being really at the bottom end of the Ford teams.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I suppose this is a good time. I mean, we've sort of touched on parity a little bit, but it's probably time to go to Parity Corner.
Parity Corner?
Parity Corner! New segment.
New segment.
Well, it will be for the short term anyway. Hopefully we won't be talking too much parity later on next year.
Maybe the first and last time that we have Parity Corner.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
What did you want to cover here?
All right, so Ryan Story has returned to the paddock this weekend. He was interviewed by none other than Mr. Speed Cafe's Fogues.
Oh, sorry, what? It said Fogues, and I managed to doze off for a second.
For those that haven't listened to a Fogues podcast, it's good sleeping material.
Yeah.
But it was actually a good interview. To be fair, he did speak very well.
He's a great journalist, no doubt about that. But his monotone on the podcast is tough
very
to get through.
Definitely, so. I 100% agree. But Ryan had a few interesting quotes, I guess we can take from the fact that Ford's not happy, which we knew to be the case anyway.
Yeah.
But he did say that supercars have committed the right level of investment now. The most important step now is ensuring that the appropriate brains trust is behind it to make it all happen. And we'll come back to that in a second. They're working hard in the background. We met with them as recent as a few days ago, and we're confident that they're heading in the right direction. I think that you spend good money after bad when you try and do things after the fact. The quotes from Mr. Ryan Story. What are your takeaways from that, David?
Yeah, well, firstly, it's great to see him back after he's been struggling with some illness. So it's great to see him back in the paddock. It's also great to have him back to be a bit more frank and a bit more bold in his discussions, because
we missed him.
Yeah, we definitely missed him, and you do wonder whether in reference to the DJR stuff, whether they've missed him too. But it's great that he's been able to really summarise and say what all the fans have been thinking, and just put it concisely. I think it's really interesting. I'd love to hear what comes out of some of those discussions that were had just recently, and I think we can touch on some of the plans that Supercars have announced a bit later on.
Yes.
But I think overall it's a great message to be able to project there. I just hope he's able to get some traction behind the scenes from those discussions.
I definitely feel like this year Ford has missed having him around, because he was such a leader behind the scenes in the political war that goes on, and at the moment I feel like there's not enough firepower in the Ford corner to sort of combat some of the stuff that seems to be happening.
Yep.
So that's good. I mean, he did have a little bit of a backhander. He said it's a shame that it's 12 months after the fact, because we certainly could have done this 12 months ago and it probably would have been the third of the price. Oof. A little bit rough there, a little bit rough.
But not wrong.
No, definitely not wrong. Definitely not wrong. Interesting to see Barry Ryan's a bit on board with the old parity discussion and being happy that Ford's up the front.
Well, yeah, I guess if we do a little flashback to when Ford were trying to get the changes at Bathurst.
Yep.
His quote famously was, I think, the only Chev team, but his quote was that he's like, give it to them, we'll beat them anyway, which is the right attitude, even if, it was kind of masking his belief. But I think that was a great start by Barry.
That was before he got the data.
Well, that is before he got the data.
And then he got the data and he said, is that why didn't we just give it to him?
Why didn't we just give it to him?
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, he even came out over the weekend said that the racing was awesome, and the fact that two Fords won couldn't have been better for the sport. So good old Barry. I'm not a fan typically, but
I've definitely had our issues, with his frankness and watching him behind the scenes with some of his team and how he goes about it. But it wouldn't be Barry without a little bit of a backhander. And he said, if they made the changes at Bathurst, it would have been better because they would not have had that big, huge wing on now. So there's always just a little bit with Barry. He's just got to have a little stab. But it's great to see that he's actually just being frank and upfront about it. And, you don't get the cloak and dagger that we sort of see with some of the legal challenges that happens with Jamie and Triple H. That it's good for the sport. I think when we see people like this that are able to actually talk and from Ryan to Barry, probably both very candid people.
And we've both said that previously, that if they're open, it's great. So moving on in Parity Corner, obviously. So we'll keep it on subject.
What are they going to do?
What are they going to do? So we're going to see the upgrades to the transient dyno out. I believe it's out in Lilydale, but I could be mistaken.
I thought it was Dandenong.
Oh, you got told Dandenong?
Melbourne.
In Melbourne? We'll go with Melbourne. Melbourne's good.
Melbourne.
So we're waiting on a couple of updates for this coming from the US and from Europe itself. So, and there's a little thing of the torque, what do they call them? The torque sensors in the motors. They've got an update to the torque sensors. Apparently they already have them, but these will be a little more minute and pick up any of the losses of through the drivetrain and so forth.
Better readings.
Readings, so that's the idea. And then on top of that, we're going to head to the US. So we're going to North Carolina.
Part of NASCAR country.
NASCAR.
And the wind tunnel, which is what people have been talking about for many, many years, I think, as the parity debates have raged over the years. Fantastic facility that will actually give them the ability to throw wind and to turn the car. And to be able to read what's coming off the back wing, the side skirts, everything.
Everything. And it's a rolling wind tunnel. So basically you have a road rolling underneath. The car is stationary, but it is moving its wheels as it goes along. So that'll also be a great addition to trying to get the right parity in our parity formula category.
Yes. What do they call it?
But it came to light that this all came about back when Brody went to the States to race in NASCAR. Supercars went along with him. They spoke to the OEM teams and also NASCAR themselves to try and get this happening. So it is looking like it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think broadly having greater or a stronger connection to NASCAR, it is a similar kind of format. NASCAR is further along there, chuck the stickers on to make it different, everything the same. But I think they do things really well. I think their rollout of their latest generation of cars was completed much better, and it's a bigger business, so rightfully so. But taking the lead on getting them to assist and to drive some of the changes that we need to see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, bodes well for 2024. But yeah, I think it's a positive outcome.
It's definitely a positive outcome. It's going to cost supercars quite a bit of money, I can imagine. Which sort of brings me back to a topic that I didn't cover earlier, which was we had a release by Cameron England, a report, I should say, an article, about the race consortium that made a $2.7 million loss over the past 15 months.
Yeah.
Which are the owners of the supercars, if you're unaware.
Yeah, Race is the consortium that owns supercars and bought it from the Archer Equity Company.
Yes.
And I think reading that report, which was in The Australian, I think the biggest thing that stood out for me, just with my background and stuff, was that where he said Race's current liability has exceeded its current assets by $4.9 million. Oof. With a current asset deficit a key indicator of financial stress.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Does that mean that it could be potential bankruptcy? Do they need a buyout?
They need a buyout. That is, in business, that is a very bleaker output, and you either need a massive chunk of money from investment, or you need someone to buy out and to take hold of some of that debt with a plan to resolve it. It's a massive challenge that Supercars is in this position. Because by a lot of other businesses who probably don't have some of the other incomes committed, like they've got the obviously the TV and other sponsorship stuff where they do have some money coming in, that most businesses would be looking at towards bankruptcy at this stage. So It's pretty serious. It was a massive shock to see that report.
Wow.
But I guess now, given that it is a bit bleak for them, their next steps, possible buyouts. There's been some rumours of that.
Yeah, there is. So they actually turned down an offer back in July last year, I believe, which was by Fantech. They're a European media and entertainment.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly. I should say.
They never confirmed it.
No.
They said we've had lots of interest, etc. But you're right.
So it was Fantech that apparently, allegedly, was looking to buy it out and was rejected. The other rumour that sort of has gone by the quiet side were the Shaheen brothers. Yeah,
Shaheen's a couple of months back, I think it sort of started leaking that they were potentially looking at it. They're very, very astute businessmen. Yeah. They run the Bend complex.
They do.
They also have in the process of selling their big retail chain, which is a fuel and called OTR, fuel and convenience stores mostly in Adelaide, but elsewhere as well.
Yep.
Which would give them the financial ability to purchase it. So
definitely,
and I think, given that they are racers themselves and they have such a great business sound background, I think it would be great for them if it was to eventuate. I think it'd be a fantastic outcome for supercars and the fans.
Yeah, I tend to agree, because I mean, you only have to look at the drag racing complex they built at the Bend Motorsport Park. That is amazing. So if they can buy in or buy out, I think that'd be great. I mean, Peter Addison's been pretty vocal over this for a good 15 months or so.
No kidding. Since when he lost his bid.
Yeah.
Which would have seen, I think, a much better outcome if he was that person, if they were in charge. But yes,
they kind of need. They say dictatorship is bad, but I think in this type of category, we do need a dictator. It worked really well when Tony Cochran, Mr. Cochran, was in charge.
Yeah,
and we saw the best time of supercars throughout his reign. So I think we do need to get away from this committee style, and if that's the Shahins at the top and calling the shots, and the teams lose a little bit of their power because I think some of them have a little bit too much power, I think that can only be a good thing for the sport.
Yeah, I'm a big one for... there should be sort of influence. There should be... the team should have input to be able to help shape it, but ultimately the decision needs to be made by someone else. They shouldn't have veto power. They shouldn't have that sort of portion of control, because all it does, especially as an example with the Parity stuff, you have more Chev teams than Ford teams. Where does that leave you when you're making decisions and it comes back to the teams, when you're not following the full Parity? What's that clause? they flagged the Parity adjustment clause or something. But prior to that, it comes down to the teams making the decision. It's just not. It's not in the interest of the sport, because people are always going to be selfish towards their allegiances, as they should be.
Absolutely, they're protecting their own interests and they want to win races. So if they've got a performance advantage, they're going to want to take it. And now to Larko's Luck Award, and today it's going to
Scotty Pye.
Yay! Scotty!
Well done, mate. So what is the Larko Luck Award?
All right, Larko's Luck Award. Well, we all know that when Mark Larkin first came into supercars back, 95 with that EF Falcon, I'm pretty sure it was, he had the worst luck for like 4 or 5 years. And Scotty Pye has taken the inaugural trophy with the flick spin by Mr. Golding. Okay, so if you didn't see it, Golding lost control, was kind of just offline. Yellows were placed out. Numerous cars did get by, but he decided to do his flick spin as Scott Pye was coming through the chicane, so he came out of it, and they ended up whack.
Big collision, which took Scotty out, ruined his weekend. It was on for a really great result. And I guess initially there was some niggle back and forward that was happening online, where Mr. Pye was a little upset, as you should be.
A little?
I guess.
A little?
Yeah, having a big crack at Beardo to sort of say, why wasn't there a penalty? And I must say, I was on board with Pye. I thought something should have happened. Listening to Beardo on the podcast with Aaron Noonan, maybe I've softened a little bit. Maybe there isn't really a penalty that can be given when you're not re-entering a track. You're already on the track and just someone makes a dumb decision. So there's no doubt Golding, he screwed up.
My argument on that is more around, there is nowhere on a street circuit where you're off track. So therefore it's still a re-entry because you're facing the wrong way. So it comes down to a couple of things, and I think there's a bit of onus on both drivers here and crews. I think Golding should have been, or his crew members should have been informing him when it was a right time to do a flick spin.
Correct.
But also I think the onus is on Team 18 to inform Pye that there is a car facing the wrong direction on the exit of the first chicane. And then he could have had a better idea or understanding of what's actually going on, rather than just, you see a yellow flag, but you don't actually know where that car might or might not be.
And that's where I think the big onus on Scott Pye is that there was a yellow out. He was obviously in a rhythm to try and catch up to the pack. And so probably didn't, in my opinion, didn't quite give the yellow flag the due notice that it should have. His team definitely should have been telling him the car was spun on the exit, and so that he should be slowing down. Even more so. There were other competitors that actually ended up straight lining because they were told he was on the exit. They didn't know where, so they just straight lined to go round. That was probably the right decision that should have happened for everyone. But it's definitely one of those. The luck of Larko struck beautifully. So, and on a weekend where the Hino Camaro actually looks really good with that livery.
All right. So congratulations, Scott Pye. Well done. Unlucky, some might say. But yes, let's switch to the livery of that Hino just quickly, because that was probably one of the best looking Camaros I have ever seen. Regardless of any livery, and I know it was pretty basic, but
Yeah,
Your thought?
the old less is more. It was just, such a clean and well designed with that vintage sort of style. And I think it was great to see the cars looking good. We had a few changes over the Bathurst period of some cars that got prettied up, and some were alright, but this is by far the best Camaro that I've seen, I think.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I put that probably just slightly ahead of the current Penrite livery that they're running, because I really like that. I know you're probably a little bit different on that, but I really like that livery.
I don't like it at all. I want to go back to before the where we had the Sandown.
You want Sandown? You want the Federation back?
I love the Federation back. That would be that's ultimate.
Speaking of Federation,
the old Moff.
We might just be a little bit biased on that front.
I do love that, and it was such a great, the Sandown event, which was traditionally, the more retro round, but then they changed to this. Well, it's like a poo gold. I don't know. I'm not a fan.
It's a brushed bronze, mate. Brushed bronze. It looks beautiful on track. Absolutely sensational.
So with that, it's time to wrap up the episode. Thanks for joining us. We'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe if you have enjoyed the content, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode.
Definitely. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Cheers.
See you next one.
Bye.
Bye.